Welcome to Replenish. This is the atmosphere of discovery where we discover the master's plan. Today's session, we're going to talk about interruptions. So interruptions are a gap or a break in a continual pattern or process of thought, action, and way of being. Interruptions, there is a gap or a break from a continual pattern or a continual process in the way we think and the way we act and the way we are in our life, okay? Some interruptions can cause brief pauses in our life, and other interruptions can last for years, right? It can even bring about a permanent stop in our life. And so some people are interrupted by an event in their life and they never get back on track, right? And some examples of those events are things like when you become a parent, right? When you get married, the death of a loved one, there's a change in your career, either voluntarily or involuntarily, right? Some type of traumatic episode when you move, when you change locations, either voluntarily or involuntarily. Anything that breaks a pattern or a process in your life that causes a change, that is an interruption. Okay. And we all have been interrupted, right? We've all had the unexpected phone calls, we've had the unexpected visits, even things that we expect to happen, but we're not prepared for. These are interruptions in our lives. Okay. So have you gotten back on track from the interruptions in your life, or have those interruptions completely stopped you from moving forward? Right? Distractions. Distractions can cause interruptions, and interruptions can be distractions. Okay. After you allow something to prevent you from giving your full attention to your destination, it can become an interruption. Okay. Something or someone that puts a break in your journey of life can distract you by causing your focus to be on it instead of on the road that you're traveling on, right? How long can you lack focus in important areas at these important markers and important moments in your life before it begins to interrupt your life, right? And these interruptions can cause and create detours on the map to discover God's plan for your life, right? Everybody should have a spiritual map that allows them to see and reach the goals that are set for their purpose here on earth, right? We should all have that spiritual map in our mind, but a lot of us don't. Okay, we live day for day. We have no goals, no plans, no hope for the future. We're just living to die, right? We are supposed to be living to fulfill a purpose. And when that purpose is fulfilled, then we can make that decision to go home and be with the Father. But God does not want you to leave here unfulfilled and purposeless. Okay? God does not want you to leave here unfulfilled and purposeless. Okay? He doesn't want to see you before your time. He desires your purpose to be fulfilled, and then you call yourself to him, right? How many has God called, and how many are we calling to him because we've done the work, we've ran the race, we finished the course, right? As a child of God, if you are facing a situation that will cause you to leave here, if you haven't fulfilled your purpose, it's time to fight. Okay? Discipline ourselves. We have to stay out of situations where we're around the wrong people, we're in the wrong place at the wrong time, right? These detours, the lack of discipline, the lack of purpose, it causes premature deaths and makes us okay with living an unfulfilled life, right? If we are leaving here without achieving the joy and fullness, we are not experiencing what God desires for us to experience here in this lifetime. We know that there is joy and gladness where we're going, but God did not design us to be here to suffer, right? And so we have to pay attention to those interruptions in our life where we just stop, okay? Interruptions come into the lives of all of us, okay? Interruptions come into the lives of all of us. You can let them make you better. You can let them teach you a lesson, or you can let them destroy you and make your life hard, right? the interruptions that we are prepared for, they don't affect us as bad as those that are unexpected. Those unexpected interruptions removes our ability to see anything outside of it, right? Our perception is wrapped in it. The way we respond is wrapped in it. The way we live, our hopes for the future, all of it becomes wrapped inside this interruption, right? And then there are moments that God himself interrupts you, right? We don't like it, but it puts us back on the path that we're supposed to be on, right? We get sidetracked so easily by shiny things, right? We get sidetracked by pain and passions that is imitating pleasure. We get sidetracked by wickedness disguising itself as righteousness, right? So these interruptions by the highest power, the Almighty God, is to place us on the right path, right? And a lot of times we are just going down a road and everything feels good and looks good, but God knows that the end of this road is destruction, right? And so he'll interrupt us, and we may not like it, we may not like how it feels, but it puts us back on the right path. My mom and I were having a conversation about when I became pregnant with my first child, right? I was 16 when I got pregnant and 17 when I delivered. And we were just talking about this, how that interruption caused our bond to grow as mother and daughter. And where I thought that she was going to kill me, literally, it was so much love and togetherness and unity that was able to put us on the path that we needed to be on, right? So we may not like the interruption, but it's still going to put us on the path we're supposed to be on, right? So we're supposed to make the necessary adjustments to sustain once we get back on track, right? And that includes changing our environment, changing our habits, changing our perceptions, changing what we take in and what we put out, right? God sees what looks and feels good, but it's leading us to destruction, right? We may not know it because we looking at what it looks like, but he knows what it's disguising itself as, right? So he tries to put us back on the right path by using these interruptions, okay? Some interruptions are caused by competition, right? People competing to put you beneath them, right? Forces of darkness competing to destroy your light, right? They are in competition with your destiny. You have people posing as your friend, posing as someone who is for you, but their whole purpose is to compete with your destiny, to derail you, for you not to look at the road that you're supposed to be on, right? When these competing interruptions show up, it's time to battle, not forfeit. We're not calling a fight. We're going to war, right? Because they're competing with your destiny, right? There are permanent interruptions where you must learn to view your life with these new permanent changes instead of focusing on the old life, okay? It will require a well thought out plan and the execution of that plan without distractions. You have people that don't make plans at all. And then you have people who make a bunch of plans but never execute any of the plans, right? When you have a permanent interruption, you make a plan, right? And then you execute that plan without distraction. And that puts you back on the right path, right? Regret. I'm going to talk about regret. Regret is a temporary, it's not a permanent. Regret is a temporary interruption that we allow to become permanent, okay? Regret is your reaction to a bunch of could haves, but you didn't. It's your reaction to a bunch of would haves, but you wouldn't, right? It's a comparison of the state you're in now versus where you were, okay? And regrets can cause interruptions because you can end up stuck there, right? If it's a regret, it's because now you're realizing I could have done something, right? Now you're realizing that I would have done something, but I didn't, right? That's what regret is. It's a temporary interruption that can become permanent because we can end up stuck there. The most common regret is having enough confidence and courage to live your life to the fullest, not allowing certain moments or certain people to ruin the best parts of you. That is the most common regret. If I'd have just had enough courage, if I just had enough confidence to live my life the way that God designed me to live it, versus letting all of these events and letting all of these people suck out the best parts of me, right? If you allow this regret to turn into guilt, it will start affecting your soul and your body, right? Regret, guilt, shame, these actually cause stomach issues and muscle tension. It causes physical ailments in your body. It don't just affect your spirit and your soul, okay? Guilt can be transferred to your children and your close family members and friends, okay? Guilt is very generous. Hear what I'm saying. Guilt is very generous. It want to share with everybody, okay? If you don't deal with it, it will cause people around you to feel guilty for enjoying their lives. It will cause people around you to feel guilty about being happy, about experiencing positive, healthy relationships. It will cause people around you to feel guilty for excelling in their accomplishments. Is that you? Are you showing or allowing your regret, your guilt, and your shame? Are you allowing that to affect the people around you? And you know this because people around you will start to tell you something good and then they stop. And you're like, what? And they say, never mind, right? Because they feel guilty for being happy, right? Do you minimize other people's excitement and happiness, right? Remember, I told you, guilt is generous. It likes to be spread around. And a lot of times parents can even transfer this onto their children, knowingly and unknowingly. Listen, because I didn't graduate, I'm going to make you feel guilty for you graduating and going on to college. This happens for real, okay? And so you want to make sure that you're dealing with that guilt, that you're dealing with that shame, right? And not passing that on to the people around you. Interruptions that we cannot control can cause us to suffer. Interruptions that we cannot control can cause us to suffer. But suffering should be temporary. If you're a child of God, suffering should be temporary. When you suffer, that means that you've expanded your capacity to experience whatever emotion you're having, right? And so if you disallow the room for the negative emotions, then they won't fit anymore, right? And you disallow the negativity by filling yourself with positivity, right? Sounds simple, right? But it's hard in practice, but it's easy to say, okay? We are more inclined to act negatively because we remain in that state too long, okay? When you process the negative emotion, you don't leave any in the reserves for you to return to, right? You deal with it until there's none left to pop out when it has an audience, right? A lot of stuff we repress and we suppress and we think it's gone because we left some in reserves to pull up, right? And what happens is it waits until it has an audience. It waits until you're in front of people before it exposes the fact that, hey, I ain't gone. You might have suppressed me, but it's always going to come out when it has an audience, right? And a lot of times it come out on the wrong person. So you want to deal with those negative emotions, right? And so when you deal with it, when that emotion leaves, it leaves a void. It leaves an empty space. And that emptiness must be filled with something positive. So even if that negative emotion tries to return, and it tries to return in things like memory, right? You remember something triggers you. That negative emotion will try to return. But if you've been filling that void with positivity, right, it won't fit. There's no room for it. There's no space for it. Okay? You won't even have the space to suffer from it anymore, right? And that's why we as people of God, when we have peace, it's a different type of peace. When we are discussing our testimonies and people see the peace on us and they're so like, how could you have gone through that and look like this? That's why. Because we've allowed that void to be filled with the positivity, which is Jesus Christ, which is our Lord and Savior, right? And so this means that you have to do things that evoke those positive emotions, not the negative ones. You can't keep doing stuff that's going to keep triggering you, or being around the people that's going to keep triggering you to respond in a negative way, okay? So that's how suffering creates interruptions in your life, and that's how you overcome it, okay? Some of us have allowed these different interruptions to create new characters in our mind. Some of us have allowed interruptions to create different characters in our mind. They've created new identities in order for us to cope with them, right? Now it's time for you to write a eulogy to all of those alternative identities, okay? You know how easy it is to dissociate. Dissociate means that you're disconnecting from your own thoughts and feelings and memories and your sense of identity, okay? And let me tell you, it starts by you ignoring your feelings, right? You ignore your feelings, you pretend you don't feel what you feel, you don't address it, right? Then you start having conversations with yourself about what you're going to do to not feel this way again, right? That's not dealing with it. That's not. So when you start having those conversations about what you're going to do to not feel that way again, because it's not in your character to be that way, you create a character that makes it okay for you to be that way, right? This is what we do. We do it at different stages of our life, right? Then your mannerisms begin to change, right? Your thought patterns begin to change. You begin to experience memory issues to try to disconnect you from what you are choosing not to deal with, but you don't realize it's taking away your good memories too, right? You change the way you dress. And finally, what do? We create a name for this made up personality. How many of y'all have fake names, right? For this made up personality, okay? Stop with the new identities. Stop making up new personalities. Go get the old one back and process the issues so that you can be healed, right? You cannot heal a made up identity, okay? Your pastor might be laying hands for 12 years and don't even know they're trying to cast out a personality, okay? You have to desire to be in your right mind first. And some pastors don't even know, or maybe they don't even have the time to sort through the different people in your head. So just help them out. Let them know it's not just me in here. I've created other identities to cope with the things that I've had to go through in my life, right? You can only cast out a personality if a person is possessed by it. Okay, if that thing has taken full possession of them. But if it's something they're just doing mentally to cope, that's a counselor, right? You can't exercise that, okay? You can hear a different voice and you think it's a demon, but it's just the person's made up identity, right? And there's a lot of that going around. People are making up just different identities to cope with what they have gone through. So you need to know when you need a counseling session or exorcism. Everything is not a demon, right? You cannot stop interruptions from happening in your life, okay? But you can prepare for it. You can process it, right? And you can protect your identity through it, okay? Have you lost yourself in an interruption? And interruptions happen sometimes even from the womb, right? There are some things that have happened to your mother while you were in the womb that cause an interruption, and you feel her emotions, right? So there's an interruption there, and that may be a piece of you that you need to get back, right? But you have no knowledge of it, you just felt it, right? Have you stopped functioning as your authentic self? And it starts subtle, like somebody laughs at something you like, so you decide not to like it anymore, right? Subtle things like that. Have you created coping personalities? Have you begun to have these conversations in your head about what you're not going to do anymore, even though it's you? It's something God put on the inside of you, and you're deciding not to be this way because of someone else's negativity causes them to kill the positivity in you, right? But that is your gift to the world. That is your purpose in this world. And you've allowed someone else's negativity, which came from probably some hurt that they were going through or some traumatic thing that they were going through, right? And so it just keeps the cycle going, right? Let those interruptions become your motivation. Let those interruptions become your opportunity to reset. Let those interruptions teach you lessons in focus and discipline. Let those interruptions start the life you were supposed to have instead of creating a longer break between your past and your destiny. Okay, so I wanted to come to you all and talk to you about interruptions in your life. There's different reasons for them, but as we know, all things work for the good of those that are called according to his purpose. So even when we get off the road, those interruptions still bring us back to God, still brings us back to purpose, right? And so I want you to think about it. Are you still stuck in an interruption in your life? Let them teach you, let them motivate you, let them reset you, let them allow you to find yourself, your true self. Okay. And I want to end with our statement. This feeling is temporary. It is just a process. Face your disappointments in yourself and in others. Some stuff is your fault. It was a bad decision, but you can make it better. You can change the outcome. Your life is more than the sum of your hard experiences. Your life is more than the sum of your pain and your failures. You can still climb that mountain or command it to move. You will live again. Your happiness is not determined by what is happening now. It is determined by what will happen later, right? What you do with this moment is imperative to you understanding why you needed to go through it, why it had to happen to you. And after that, you will see that it happened for you. I want you all to be blessed on today. Don't allow the interruptions to be a stopping point. Well, hopefully you all will spend the next 7 days until next Friday thinking about those interruptions in your life. I can think of, as I was preparing this session, there was so many I could think of, and it's like, did I stop right there? I just gave up, I just completely stopped. I didn't allow it to teach me anything. I didn't allow it to reset me. So as I'm thinking about it, just think about the things that have caused permanent changes in your life and what are you going to do with it, right? And so everything that is spoken in these sessions, it does call you to action, right? It does cause you to look at the areas in your life where you might have gotten off track, where you may have been following something that was not God's design for you, right? And so we want to get back to being who God created us to be, right? Everything in creation does what it was supposed to do, but we're the only ones that get sidetracked. We're the only ones that somebody can tell us we're not something and we believe them, right? You can tell a tree that it's a garage, it's still going to be a tree, right? So think about it from that aspect. All of creation obeys God, but we're the ones that he's given free will. And a lot of times our will is to not do and to not be who he has called us to be. And it's because we're made like him, right? We have a choice, we have a voice. And so the intent was not for us to not be like him. Being like him was supposed to be a blessing. And so all of us should live our life in the way that he intended for us to, and stop blaming him for the way our lives end up if we don't follow him, right? We need to look in the mirror and see where we may have gone astray, where we may have decided to be led, on our own understanding, but not acknowledging him in all our ways. So in all our ways, every single thing, people say things are not spiritual, but every single way, everything we say, we must acknowledge the Father. We can't just expect him to show up to bless us, right? Every covenant that he's made with us, there's a part we have to do. We have to listen and obey his command, right? We skip that part and we want to list all the blessings in Deuteronomy, everything he says he's going to do for us, but we miss the first part where he says, if you listen and obey, if you seek my face, if you humble yourself. We don't want to do that part. We just want him to show up with stuff. right? And so when we are reminding God of his word, we need to remind ourselves of the part that says what we're supposed to do. And so he's supposed to be the only one, the only God. We can't make our kids God. We can't make our job a God. We can't make ourselves a God. He's supposed to be the only one, right? And that's what provokes him to jealousy, especially in this day and time that we have all these other gods. And because they're not made of wood and gold, we don't recognize that they're God. Our feelings can be God. We put our feelings above God. Yeah, I know you tell me to love my enemies, but I don't feel like it right now. But what did he say? There's a reason. There's a reason why he tells us to love our enemies, because that unforgiveness creates a void where evil can come in. And that bitterness and that anger that's in unforgiveness can cause you to kill someone, right? Can cause you to kill them either with your mouth or physically, right? That's an evil transfer if you stay in unforgiveness so long. So it eliminates the ability for evil to rest in you. And so a lot of times we don't understand that. And so just want you all to be blessed and have the knowledge that you need so that you can have the right perception, so that you can have the mind of God, the mind of Christ, so that you can live this life the way that God intended for us to live it. So to God be the glory. Love you all. Have a good day.